Welcome to the Big Biz Show.
Taking care of business.
You want fast-talking, hard-hitting discussions on business and finance? Maybe with a barroom slant and some really salty peanuts? We're not counting calories. We're counting cash. Before we get to the man with the financial plan, meet the money team. Costa, Mary, and Greg. Now Captain Finance himself, Sully.
From the Loft 100 studios here in Southern California, wherever you're watching, wherever you're listening, a big old howdy to you, as we say. Costa, our executive producer, Greg Todorov, and of course, Sully.
But do we say that, Greg?
Do we say that? Yeah, it literally is written in the contract. You must say a big old howdy to you.
Well, considering there's no contract, I'm going to say...
You saying I'm lying?
Good to see you today. Let's go straight to our punctrepreneur, our analyst, Howie Font. Howard.
Hello.
So does this stock market look like awful lot like the Donald Trump's first few months in office on his first presidency? Because I sort of feel like he's going to come in and be the hero here shortly. After all the tariff talk has tanked the market for a few days, and he's going to come into the rescue. This all seems so contrived to me, Howie.
Well, listen, I mean, the market is a measure of present day on the ground data. So we're always going to see it pricing things in that are going to happen in the future, that it thinks it's going to happen in the future. And so we're always going to be talking about the news of the day. So let's just get a trader's mindset going here and know that we're looking at headlines and, you know, this probably is going to shake out fine. But yeah, today everyone is worried about tariff week. April 2nd is what the president's calling Liberation Day. I will say, though, to your point, you know, Ronald Reagan's first 2 years in office in 1980, they were hard. He kind of instigated a recession. They had really high interest rates, and they needed to bring those down, and that hurt the economy. And it took the whole 2 years, and you know the midterms were bad for him.
Well, so talk about tariffs and the reality, because it seems like sort of a Cold War in terms of Donald Trump and the other countries, because there's a lot of bloviating and threatening going on. But really, is it all going to come to pass? Is it coming to fruition? And how bad is it going to be?
Yeah, I mean, that's what I think a lot of people have been speculating about. We've seen tariffs come on and then come off and then have exemptions, but we're now 3 days away. So this is peak nervousness, I would think, for the market. And after everything's announced, after we actually see what the policies are on April 2nd, we'll actually be able to have a rational discussion about these things. It's just the nervousness that's building up right now.
Howie, I don't know about you, but I'm celebrating Liberation Day by cutting down a tree and burning a tire out in my backyard. As far as that is concerned, how does Liberation Day affect, let's say, like Canada or Mexico or China, or are they mutually exclusive?
Well, they're all a little bit different. The president has made clear that it's going to be a reciprocal policy. So we're going to put whatever you put on us, we're going to put back on you in kind of the equal weight. So we don't have the same kind of low cost of labor industry that China has. But if they put, you know, $10 billion worth of goods, tariffs on that amount, then we'll find $10 billion worth of goods that we can put back on them. So that's kind of how they're balancing the scales. And for Canada, you know, they've responded. They've announced their own reciprocal tariff. So it is building up, like Sully said, this Cold War, these big trading barrier walls. Now, hopefully, the idea is you use all this to say, unless we want this as the status quo where we're all going to be worse off,
right,
let's just wipe away all these barriers. You've been unfair to us. We're trying to level the playing field. If you want everything to come down, we're happy to do that. That's the ideal.
Howie, I want to find out where we're going to hide out, but let's take a break first, and we'll go to that because there's a way to hide out. I mean, there's a way to make money here.
Oh, not physically, like go hide out somewhere. Oh, okay.
There's a way to hide out against these tariffs and still make money in the market or make money investing. It's like when gas prices go up, go buy a share of gas stock. It mitigates the gas price of the pump. There's a way to do this because there's one asset that is moving very quick, very fast, and I think you probably know what it is, but we'll talk about it. We'll get back to the break. Big Biz Show, bigbizshow.com. Loft 100 Studios, the Big Biz Show, and our affiliates and our hosts are not registered investment advisors or broker-dealers.
Our show hosts make no commitment that the purchase of securities of companies profiled or otherwise mentioned in our programming
are suitable or advisable for any person, or that an investment in such securities will be profitable in general.
Given the nature of the company's profile and the lack of an active trading market for the securities, investing is highly speculative and carries a certain high degree of risk.
We profile selected publicly traded and privately held companies on our program.
Most of these companies that we profile have provided compensation to Loft 100 Studios and its hosts for the profile coverage.
From time to time, we sell shares of the companies profiled in the open market that we receive as compensation for coverage of client companies.
But never sell stocks if we are speaking about interviewing or covering a public company who has paid compensation.
Specific questions on compensation can be obtained by contacting producer at sullyandgroup.com.
Listeners should verify all claims and do their own due diligence before investing in any securities mentioned on this program.
Investing in securities is speculative and carries a high degree of risk.
We encourage our investors to invest carefully and read the investor information available at the websites on the
Securities and Exchange Commission at sec.gov and or the Financial Industry Regulatory Authority, FINRA, at www.finra.org.
I like it.
Hey, is that a rescue plane?
Big Biz Show! Rolling on for the Loft 100 studio. Those three extremely talented and handsome gentlemen you're looking at right now, that is the Day Trader Trio.
I thought you were talking about us.
Well, we're next. Best in the business, and then there's kind of us. Costa, our executive producer, is Greg Todorov, and of course, Sully.
Great to see you today. Howie Font joins us here as our lead analyst out of New York. You know, we're talking about these tariffs, and of course, markets down 10% in the last 6 weeks as Goldman Sachs raises their chances of recession this year from 25% to 35%. But there is a place to hide out in the markets. Let me give you a couple exchange-traded funds. IAU, GLD. Does that sound familiar?
Yes.
Gold,
yes.
Right? How we talk about gold.
Yeah, so the yellow rock strike again. They've been doing great all year, but they've actually, kind of been exponentially going up as the market has come down. So this year, the market so far for the whole year is down about 5%. Gold is up a huge 17%. So we're just that's in response to inflation, that's response to tariffs. People are running to safety. So any of these traditional assets, all the metals, commodities, things that are the real good that you use dollars to buy are going to be safe havens. I would actually note that, usually you buy utility companies or consumer staples when you have a recession or when you think the economy is slowing down. That actually has not been the move. You wanted to go straight for these commodities, and gold is obviously the king of everything.
With respect to gold and respect to these cyclical sort of happenings here, stocks mostly return to their mean over time, and markets run on volatility and fear and greed. What's going to be interesting here is taking a look 6 months from now, where all this panic and all the bullets whizzing overhead, where we end up in terms of health of the economy versus health of the stock market. Do you have any pontification about where do you think this is going to go in both areas? Because one is not the other, but they're tied together.
No, I think you're right. I think that it'll be interesting actually to see what happens to the economy next week when I'm back on the show. We'll be able to see, what was the reaction to the actual tariff announcement, and it could be a lot lighter than what people are panicking about right now. I think that there's probably some credence to the argument that Trump is trying to he wants to use this tariff war to get a better deal for the United States, and it also doesn't hurt him because he wants the interest rate as low as possible. So if this is going to hurt the economy, the Fed has to respond by lowering interest rates. That'll make the debt service on the national debt go down and make it easier for him to balance the budget, which is another campaign promise. So I don't think he minds this situation at all, and we could be in a very different spot by the end of the year.
There's a saying in Wall Street that is, the trend is your friend. That means you sort of buy, you can't pick the top, you can't pick the bottom. But if we're trending down, and we're strongly trending down, is this not the time to talk about shorting stocks? Is this not the time to talk about, for your day traders, betting against it to mitigate your risk, or is it just safer just to go to the gold corner just stay there for a minute, because, man, when I'm seeing some of these drop, and I know they're going to continue to drop, it is tough for me not to go in there and short a few shares for a few days, and short high, buy back low, and keep the difference.
Listen, you've been doing it longer than I've been alive, Sully. I think you have the temperament for it. I would just warn, relatively inexperienced day traders that the stove is hot. Gold will be worth something at all times. And if you're going to short stocks, that's a valid way to make money, and you probably will in this environment. But watch it every day.
Well, the idea is this: if you buy a stock for $100, what is the most you can lose? $100. Right. If you short a stock, in other words, if you sell it before you own it, and you have to buy it back a few days later, what is the most you can lose? Infinity. Because, right?
Net worth.
I mean, it can go
your house.
No, not more than that. I mean, let's say that you sell a stock at 100 and get to buy it back at 80,
right?
You keep the 20.
Of course.
If you sell a stock at 100 and you got to buy it back at 4,000, that might be an issue, and that's happened before. That's what's called a short squeeze, which we don't want to see happen. Consumer sentiment, Howie, talk about consumer sentiment for a minute.
Yeah, so this is kind of a lagging indicator, actually. People tend to keep the headlines with them for months to years. So in 2008, we saw consumer sentiment fall to some of the lowest levels. Obviously, we had the recession, the financial crisis, all that. Actually, right now, people feel the same as they did then. There isn't a lot to bear that out as far as employment. There were very different employment environments back then. The economy was moving in a very different direction, but it does say something that people think that there's bad off right now because of the tariffs and the general economy as they were in 2008. It probably is a little overblown, but you can't ignore people's feelings, especially.
But how does it? Is it because the market runs on emotion? Is that why we're concerned about this?
No, that's right. I mean, I think it has a lot to do with the purchasing power of your wages, right? So, okay, you're employed. Okay, wages have gone up nominally in dollar terms, but can you buy the same amount of stuff? Does it feel like you're improving? No, people feel like we're in a recession, even though at the beginning of the year we were talking about the market being at all-time highs and this wave of euphoria. So I think that does have to do with the last 6 weeks of headlines. Usually it takes people a little while to acknowledge that consumer sentiment has gone up. In 2010, the economy was recovering, but, we were all in the malaise of, it's the recession economy, that's why I can't get a job. And people use that as a reason for prolonged amounts of time.
Hey, Howie, let's talk about that recession talk. We've been talking about recession talk for 4 years now, literally. and the saying is, you can't ever tell when a recession begins and ends until long after it's over. I would say that 2 quarters of diminished GDP define a recession. It has defined it since almost the beginning of time. The playbook was changed under the Biden administrations, where suddenly, no, we're not in a recession. Haven't we been for a while? I mean, or is the new definition standing true?
Well, I don't think the new definition is valid. That was a very weird move by the Biden administration. Everyone, in reality, colloquially thinks that 2 quarters or more of
contracting GDP
contracting GDP is what defines a recession. Now, the issue with that is just because you don't have the flu doesn't mean you're not sick. So certain industries can be in a recession, and the whole economy as a whole is not in recession. So when we talk about recession, we're saying the economy as a whole is in recession. But if tech stocks do really well and that keeps us out of a recession, well, the rest of the economy that's not in the tech sector can still feel it. Most of these metrics are pretty good, though. I mean, we see something like consumer sentiment because of inflation, I think, mostly.
Does the talk of recession, the market go up, and the tariffs all go away all at the same time here in the next couple of weeks? Because I think a lot of this is perception.
Yeah, that would be jet fuel. I think if all those went away at the same time, you'd see me with Mardi Gras beads and confetti, and I'd be celebrating right with you.
Well, but that'd be if you believed any of this was true anyway. I mean, look, I believe the tariff thing is it's bloviating. This is all about puffery in my estimation, and then right.
The hard thing is you only feel pain until you get the final result. So this whole thing depends on what is the final result, what is the new agreement that's made, do we have better relationships with Canada and Mexico and China and Europe after all this is said and done than before? Like, was it worth going through it all? Because that's the real question, right? So we can't judge it until it's over. But for now, the market is feeling pain. If you are an investor, if you have a 401k, it probably doesn't feel great, you know, if you're to be a retiree. But this too shall pass, I think, is the...
Howie Font for president.
That is our market analyst of the Big Biz Show, Howie Font. Yes, for president, we would all vote for him, and then we would rule the world. Howie, thanks, brother. All right, keep it right here. There is much more to come with the Big Biz Show. See you in a second. In over 175 countries, all the ships at sea on the American Forces Network, as always, the brave men and women of the United States Armed Forces. Thank you for what you do, what you've done for us. That was the Day Trader Trio. This is Costa. Our executive producer is Greg Todorov. And the man with the plan, Sully.
How is your Vivos therapy going with your...
I was just talking with Greg about it because I knew Kirk was coming on the show, and the snoring is almost non-existent.
How do you know?
Because when I have my appliance in, which is about 12 to 14 hours a day, obviously I fall asleep with it in, no snoring. On the occasion that like I'll doze for an afternoon nap or something on the couch and I don't have it in, freight train.
You can wake up yourself?
Yeah.
You know?
Oh, totally no.
Oh, you do?
Oh, yeah. But it is less severe. My wife says, you're not as loud as you used to be, but when I have the device in, nothing.
No kidding.
Zero silence.
I give you Kirk Huntsman, of course, the CEO of Vivos Therapeutics, publicly traded under the symbol VVOS, Breathe New Life. Vivos has the first ever FDA 501k clearance of an oral device treatment for severe obstructive sleep apnea. Kirk, how are you, sir? You guys, you know, for our audience, you may have heard us talk about a Bizumentary coming out featuring Vivos and Kirk and such, and it really is pretty spectacular. I mean, I smell Emmy. You'll see it very shortly. Kirk, thanks for coming in. Isn't that great to hear? When you hear yet another patient?
Anytime you say my name with Emmy, it's something I never really expected in life. But look, I think that's great. I've had the opportunity to participate in some of the filming and whatnot as you know, kind of a bystander and whatnot, as well as just on screen. But man, your guys are doing a phenomenal job. I'm just thrilled.
Well, wait till you see it, because it's not only a great piece on obstructive sleep apnea, but it's almost like a PSA. It's almost like a public service now.
Yeah.
With respect to sort of dealing with what you're called the silent killer a long time ago. Catch us up, by the way, with what's going on with you guys. Lots of business stuff going on with Vivos that we need to.
Oh yeah. So today, by the way, is it's the end of our quarter. We're filing our 10K, and we are very excited about what we're going to be talking about. I can't say anything until after everything gets filed, which will be later this afternoon. But very exciting news for Vivos shareholders. Very exciting news for the future of the company, and we'll be making some further announcements over the course of the next couple of weeks on some things that are really, really exciting. So,
hey, Kirk,
stuff happening.
I've got a question in terms of when you're a device company. How do you guys gather more market share? Is it just about advertising more? Is it just about letting more people know? Or is there actually a strategy, like an M&A strategy or something like that?
No, that's a really good question, Sully. And the answer is we had to find a way to put our products in front of more patients. And so we stepped back and we asked ourselves, where are these patients? And the answer is that these patients are in the sleep testing labs all across the country. There are 2,500 sleep testing labs across the United States. By some estimates, there may be 4,000, but it depends on which accreditation and all those things you look at. But they're testing hundreds of thousands of patients a month. And so that's where we're going. And that's where we're either seeking to affiliate or acquire these sleep testing centers that have the volume. And so the idea is that when a patient, let's just take Mike as an example, the moment that Mike found out that through a test that he had obstructive sleep apnea, the first question on his mind was, well, now what do I do about it, right? Now his wife's question was, how fast can you make this happen?
Or do you have a good divorce attorney?
But the question on Mike's mind is, what do I do, right? And so we want to be at the table with our solution as opposed to CPAP. Because as Mike has told his story, the CPAP solution for most people is not exactly something they look forward to. And a lot of these CPAP units get shoved under the bed. They're up on the shelf in the closet collecting dust. And what we want is we want to be at that table, at that time, at that critical inflection point in the patient journey where they're trying to decide on treatment. And that's how we scale this business.
Kirk, is in a situation like that where you haven't been at the table before, does that sleep doctor or sleep tester, whatever, then just say, okay, well, here's my friend who is with a CPAP company, call them, they're going to hook you up with your CPAP machine, and blah, 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 your problem is solved?
Yeah, so Mike, you were unwittingly a victim of the PAP and SLAP industry. PAP and SLAP meaning that you got tested positive for OSA.
Yep.
The doctor had his requisite 15 to 20 minute interview with you.
Yep.
He put you into a PAP, slapped you on the butt, and said, next man up, right?
Pretty much, exactly.
And the PAP and SLAP routine is what goes on across the face of this nation every day, because the clinicians are locked into an insurance-driven model that honestly is not doing anybody any favors. And it's not meeting the needs of these people. What these sleep labs are telling us as we go out there, they said, we are so excited to have an alternative. It's been 40 years since CPAP has been on the market. We've never had any alternatives really, other than surgical implants or surgery type things. And now you guys come along and you got a safe and effective FDA cleared device that can actually help for our more severe patients. Bring it on. So we're really, really excited about the reception we're getting. And we'll be, like I said, we've got some really interesting stuff to talk about today. As a matter of fact, we're sitting here on March 31st, but today we'll have an earnings call later this afternoon. That'll be up on our website later this evening, a recording of it for those who can't make it. But at 3 o'clock Mountain Time today, 5 o'clock Eastern, we'll have an earnings call, and we'll be talking about a lot of things. Not only what happened in 2024, which is all pretty good, but what's happening now in 2025 is just off the charts cool. So,
Kirk, is a strategy to get more sleep centers, or is a strategy to get more awareness just in the general community, or is the answer just yes to all that?
It's yes to all that. And I think the real answer, Sully, is the medical community are the people, the medical sleep specialty community are the ones who are there as the trusted providers at that critical time in a patient's journey where they're wondering, what do I do about this? And when they're presented with, what we found out is when they're presented with, do you want to go down the CPAP route, or would you like to rehabilitate your airway with Vivos? 80% of them are picking Vivos.
Yeah. Well, the other piece of it too is because it's not, you guys take seriously not just the therapy, but also if there's need for add-on therapies to make sure the outcome is perfect, right? I mean, that's a big piece of it.
Exactly.
His name is Kirk Huntsman. Kirk Huntsman, of course, CEO of Vivos Therapeutics. VVOS, Kirk, thank you so much, buddy. Can't wait to check you in the Bizumetry, of course, earnings call this afternoon. You can certainly go online to bigbizshow.com or go to vivos.com and find out how to log into those things. More Big Biz coming up.
Big Biz Show rolls on. Thank you, everybody, for cluing in, tuning in. That is the DTT, Day Trader Trio. As I always say, my favorite band ever. Back here at the bar, it is Costa. It's our executive producer, Greg Todorov, and of course, Sully. Hi, Sully.
Good to see you. Who do we got next?
We have Mr. I'm sorry, were you addressing Greg or myself when you asked that question?
Just the minions that all are.
You got it.
That I am king of all I survey. I would like to. I hear that this is one of the coolest guests we've ever had.
I can't wait to talk to him.
All right. The name of the company is Realbotix.
Yeah.
Okay. Stock symbol is XBOT.
Uh-oh.
Are we looking at the wrong page?
No, I immediately see that Skynet is active.
Yep.
Just by their ticker symbol, XBOT.
Andrew Kiguel is the CEO, and he joins us now via Zoom. Andrew, how are you, sir? Good to see you.
I'm good. Thanks for having me on.
You sound like Hal 100, just your voice. Just going to say, because I wasn't looking up when you talked, it jarred me a little.
Little Hal there.
I'm just going to let you take it on top, from the very top, about robots in daily life. Is this something that's actually happening in our lives?
Yeah, so our company has a very different perspective to robots. While most of our peers are building robots to really replace physical human labor, we're viewing robots as, in a sense, to interact with people for human interaction. And that could be at a retail store, could be a concierge, and it can even be a companion for someone at their home.
So talk about real applications. Give us an example of something front and center.
I can give you lots. We recently sold a robot to a family that has an autistic son, and the robot is there to keep that person company. We have found that often people on the spectrum interact really well with AI. Our robots have a vision system, so they can recognize people, objects, and situations, and that's a way for the parents to even monitor and have some sort of protection with what their son is doing. Think about a retail store. Imagine you go in and a robot is there, can greet you, point you to where the t-shirts are, what's on sale, and keep an eye on people. If there's an incident of theft, they can also alert the owners of the store. And of course, think about entertainment. The market for entertainment robots is massive. It's going to be 100 million plus in the next few years. So consider museums and theme parks, which are some other areas that we have sold robots into.
Andrew, with the advancement in AI, as far as the programming of, and we'll use the family that bought the robot for their autistic child. As far as the programming,
is programming the same as programming?
I'm sorry, I'm putting the wrong
emphasis
on the wrong syllable.
Andrew, I'm sorry, but how much easier has AI made it to program this?
Things have become a lot easier, and because there's so many companies out there that produce open source AI, we find that it's easy for us to sort of build on top of those. So we build sort of our conversational layers and our different pieces. So you can still use our AI and say, what was the GDP of the United States in 1950? But it can also recognize who you are. So, hi, Sully, how are you? How's your family? How are you feeling today?
Like the robot I was married to for 22 years.
Yes.
Can I ask you, talk about genuine connections? Because this turns to be a tongue-in-cheek thing. It's been the subject of many movies, but is it really a thing? I mean, you look no further than perhaps Wilson in the movie Castaway,
sure,
right? Which at this point is 40 years old. Probably a horrible analogy, but talk about that. Talk about the real human interaction and connectivity.
Well, let's take a step back and let's talk about loneliness. Loneliness is a worldwide epidemic. There's studies out that say anywhere from 25 to 50% of Americans suffer from loneliness, and that can lead to diabetes, cancer, strokes. And so in society today, it's absolutely possible that you can have these interactions with AI and robots that feel realistic and can sort of, I guess, soothe that loneliness dilemma that the world is facing right now.
If you think in terms of addressable market in real life right now, I can think the addressable market is probably is close to infinity 20 years from now. But right this second, what are you staring at in terms of addressable market, and how do you get to profitability by looking at maybe something that's cost prohibitive or time prohibitive, or even having to sell the idea of it? Talk about that.
Right. I think the market is massive, and you can give me almost anything on the planet, and I can give you a use case. But let's just talk about retail. We saw when we first presented our robots at CES, and our robots are open source, by the way, so you can run any type of AI on them. We got 4 billion media hits in the month of January. And in fact, we got connected to you because we had this Suzanne Summers robot at a conference a couple of weeks ago. So to me, any retail store on the planet could have a use for a robot, for security purposes, to build foot traffic, to elevate a brand. I think any museum or theme park in the world could use robots. Imagine going in and walking into a hotel and there's a concierge there, and you can say, hi, and it can say, hi, Sully, welcome back. And you can be like, can you please make a restaurant reservation at Centro for me tomorrow for people 7 o'clock? I'd like some extra pillows in my room. And the AI and the robot will communicate with you and get all that stuff done for you in the background. We're having conversations right now with some ticket kiosks in Vegas about setting up agents that will be able to talk to you. So, what shows are playing in Vegas tonight? Cirque du Soleil, other different shows. It can tell you about the shows, the ratings, and get you tickets. So, I mean, the use cases are really endless.
Andrew Kiguel is the CEO of Realbotix. Their ticker symbols XBOT and XBOTF. Andrew, can somebody call you and say, hey, I want the Angelina Jolie robot. How much is that going to cost me? Asking for a friend. Wink, wink. But can you do personal? You said Suzanne Summers, and she unfortunately is deceased. So can you make those types of robots for people?
The answer is yes, with permission. We don't want to tread over anything. But we, for example, had an inquiry from a famous religious group, and they wanted us to create a robot of their leader. And to replicate things like prayer hands, and they would use their own AI to talk about their religion. And so there's a perfect use case, and it's super easy to replicate somebody. You go to a laser scanner, you put your head in a box, it does sort of a 3D all around your face and sends us those dimensions, and we can create a mold out of that person's face. And in fact, we did that for Whitney Cummings a few years ago, and she created a robot head of herself that she used on a Netflix special.
Okay. Wow. So are you at commercialization now, or are you at sort of people dipping their toe in as you guys are still developing?
So most of the development is done. What we're doing now is trying to find the best ways to scale. We have not been advertising, but really there's just been influx of natural orders that have come in. I expect over the course of the next 12 months, we will start advertising and showing more revenue. But right now we're sort of at that stage of what's the most efficient way to build these robots at scale. But we are producing them. We're building 6 right now, and they are for sale if you go to the website.
Andrew, what about like animals or pets or things like that? Are there any requests like that?
Well, we thought about it. Our superpower, though, is making robots that look very human. We have got this patented skin technology. Like, our synthetic skin is so realistic.
Okay.
The AI is based on sort of companionship and interaction. We thought about things like dogs, but I feel like that's a bit of a step back for what our real superpower is.
Okay.
I got to say, obviously we don't have enough time today, but we need to get you in studio. And
this is a whole show.
This really is. Andrew Kiguel is his name, CEO Realbotix. Andrew, will you come back on with us, because this is some fascinating stuff here, and I think.
What we've done before is, why don't you guys just do an interview with one of the robots? You don't need me.
I thought we just did.
I'm happy.
Come on!
Schedule an interview with one of our one of our robots has their own social media, so we're happy to fire out a way to do that.
Andrew, can't wait. We'll set that up for next time. Andrew Kigel's his name.
Oh my God.
XBOT. Thanks, bud. Appreciate it. Good stuff. Really good stuff.
All right, keep it here. Much more to come with the Big Biz Show. Don't go anywhere.
The fighters.
Inside the Loft 100 studios, we're just having a grand old time. So are they. That's the Day Trader Trio. I'm Costa. Our executive producers, Craig Todoroff, and of course, Sully.
As we wrap it up here on the program, good to see you. John Yu, by the way, is the CEO of a company called Kairos Pharma. KAPA is the stock symbol, and we're talking in the world of cancer drug resistance and immune suppression. And I give you John Yu. John, how are you, sir? Good to see you.
I'm good, thank you. Thank you for having me.
Good. Hey, John, talk to us about the problem you're addressing, please. We've talked a lot lately with biopharma companies talking about immune suppression and cancer drug resistance. This is almost like the antibiotic sort of problem we're having in the world. I'm wondering if there's a parallel here.
Yeah, there's definitely a parallel. You know, there are a lot of drugs for cancer that work very effectively. The only problem is that they stop being effective after about 6 months or a year or 18 months. And what we're addressing as a company is when a patient becomes resistant to that drug, just like people become resistant to antibiotics if they've had too many antibiotics in the past. So we've developed a drug to reverse a very central mechanism of resistance that develops to several types of oncology drugs. And we're addressing large markets in prostate cancer and in lung cancer, and right now in the phase 2 and a phase 1 trial, and we're planning to move forward with head and neck cancer thereafter. But it's also relevant in breast cancer and colon cancer. So clearly a very central and important problem in cancer therapy.
John, when somebody becomes immune to the drug, as you said, within 6 months or a year, does that mean a completely whole new drug has to be introduced, or can the old one be tweaked and tried again?
Yeah, so that's what our drug does. We add our drug to the drug that's become resistant.
Okay.
And by targeting a protein that's on the surface that develops during this resistance, it reverses that resistance completely. So we allow that drug to work again as it did originally.
John Yu is the CEO of Kairos Pharma. Of course, their ticker symbol is KAPA.
If you want to talk about kind of an issue, this is one of the dirty little secrets in biopharma drug culture, where they don't want to talk about this, but they sort of have to. How do you get front and center to this? Because obviously patients want to know this. Drug delivery companies probably don't want to have to bring this up. But talk about sort of the adoption rate there.
Well, so I think that's a very good question. And I think the thing that makes us unique is that we make a plethora of drugs work again once they stop working. And so we're not really competing with large pharma companies. We're actually working with them to make their own drugs work when patients have become resistant to them, or when those drugs work incompletely on patients. So it addresses a very central problem in cancer therapy. And so, people may not address that, but I think pharma companies will eventually have to address this, this impedance to their drug eventually.
Hey, John, talk about the Department of Defense partnership, I suppose you can call it. There's a funding of $600,000. Explain how that kind of connected with you.
Yeah, so that funds a second drug that we're developing for cancer drug resistance called ENV205, which is a partial antibody that targets mitochondrial DNA when patients have become resistant to different types of chemotherapies. And so this has been sort of the way we've advanced our company through federal grants from the Department of Defense, as well as NIH grants. And this has totaled over $25 million in the past. And so by using federal grants to develop our drugs and get it to clinical trial, we've really advanced the company through non-dilutive funding. And now that we're in large randomized clinical trials, like in prostate cancer, we thought that this was an important time to get into the public markets, and that's why we did an IPO onto NYSE, and why we're on the public markets today. Because now we need large amounts of money to get these large trials completed.
Sure. John, if you can, talk to us about adding the University of Utah.
Yeah, so that is a large university with an investigator that's really been central in moving the field of prostate cancer therapy forward. And so that institution is added to our present institution, Cedars-Sinai Medical Center, and the City of Hope, to rapidly enroll on our trials so that we can add patients in these 3 large clinical centers. We just recently announced, in fact, today, that we finished enrollment on the safety phase of the trial, and so we'll be reporting on the results of that, both safety and efficacy, beginning in the first half of 2025.
John, what does the rest of 2025 look for you guys? What are you most excited about?
So we are going to report on the interim safety data, on the interim efficacy data, and I think that will give us a very large hint on how this trial will progress towards its completion. And we're very interested in taking that and discussing it with pharma partners so that we can potentially partner this and some of our other assets with pharma companies at the appropriate time to co-develop this towards commercialization.
John, I got to tell you, it's obviously sounds promising. It's something that I've never even seen before, and at the same time, you seem to be at the right place at the right time, especially in terms of capital formation. You guys have the runway it's going to take to get this across the goal line, or is that part of the reason you went public?
Yeah, so we are going to be able to finish this trial. We have enough cash to last us through 2025 and into 2026. We will look for opportunistic times when there are catalysts to potentially raise more cash. Obviously, as a biotech company, you're always looking to raise additional funding for these large clinical trials. But I think we're in good shape, particularly right now as the markets are kind of in a little bit of disarray.
John, can't wait to have you back in the program.
John Hughes, CEO, Kairos Pharma, ticker symbol is KAPA. And that will do it for this edition of the Big Biz Show. To everybody who makes the show possible, thank you. And thank you most of all for tuning in. We'll see you next time.
All right, I've got